Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with atbbq.com, and this is Boston Butt Pulled Pork Shoulder. Today we're going to be tackling one of the most popular barbecue cuts of meat. It's the Boston Butt Pork Shoulder, and we're taking it all the way to pulled pork, which is fantastic and so versatile for sandwiches, for pizza, for tacos. You can use this in all kinds of ways. The first thing we're going to do is trim this thing up, then we're going to inject it, season it, get it on the grill to smoke, and we'll finish here in about 7 hours. So what we're starting off with here is an 8.3 pound Boston Butt Pork Shoulder. The bone is in on this guy. And as you can see here, there are two very distinctively different sides. There's the fat cap, and then the opposite side where the seam is going to be. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But first we're gonna get to work on the fat cap. I'm gonna be removing the entire fat cap today to cook this pork butt. Now, it's not necessary to remove the entire fat cap, but when you do, you expose far more red meat, which you can get the seasoning to stick to a lot better than you can the fat on the outside. Another thing it does for us is it gives us more surface area for the smoke to penetrate. Now, this fat is great. It'll render down. It'll soften up a bit while it cooks, but in the end, underneath what you're gonna have is just some gray, unseasoned meat. So we're gonna take that off, not worried about there not being enough fat because there's tons of intramuscular fat that runs all the way through this giant roast of pork. Now don't throw away these scraps here because these are great for making sausages, adding extra fat to other grinds. I'm not gonna spend too much time here. That's pretty good. We've got the majority of that fat cap taken off of there. Next, we're gonna explore the other side and make sure that there's nothing left behind on the surface, any hard pieces, cartilage, like this tiny piece right here. See that bit of white right there? Or if we move over here, that hard bit of white right there. We're just gonna take off any little pieces like that that you don't wanna chew on later. All right, so we're good on the surface there. The next thing we're gonna do is get in between these two pieces of meat right here and clean out some of this extra cartilage. There's some fat in here, just some chewy stuff that's not very pleasant once this thing is cooked all the way down. So this goes pretty far down and we're actually running right alongside the bone right here. We're just making very gentle cuts to kind of open this thing up until we get sort of to the bottom where it's just held together in this one piece of bone and a little bit of flesh right here. And then we can start to take off some of this excess stuff. So there's nothing good about chewing on this stuff. There's no good eating there. There's no problem with completely throwing away that stuff right there. And this side looks pretty good, so we're gonna move to the other side now. So some of that shiny membrane right there, we can get rid of that. Cut yourself a little tab. You've got something to hold on to while you're slicing this away. All right, so all of that's looking pretty good. And to be honest, it's below freezing out here today and my hands can't handle much more cold meat. Now with the pork butt trimmed up, it's time to move on to our injection. We're gonna do something kind of unique today. We're using a product that we often use as a marinade for ribs or for pork butts or that kind of thing. And we're gonna actually be diluting it not quite as far as we normally would and then injecting it into the center of the meat. This way we get all that flavor pumped right into the center and we don't have to wait a long period of time for it to brine or marinate. Especially with big cuts like this, it's hard to marinate that. Often what happens is the outside gets some marinade on it, the inside doesn't get much of anything. So we're gonna get around that by injecting it. All right, so the Sweetwater Spice Smoked Apple Spice Butt and Rib Bat, this is like a flavor bomb that's perfect for pork. Now normally we would go 5 times water to 1 part of the concentrate. We're gonna go 2 parts water to 1 part concentrate today. Now this is an apple juice based marinade. It also has that salt and sugar in there that you'd expect, but then there's some really cool stuff like ancho and chipotle chilies. There's some tamarind paste, which is pretty unique. Just a touch of cinnamon and a little bit of cumin as well. Really incredible flavors, especially for pork. Now this has some larger chunks and particulate in it that we want to strain off because we won't be able to inject those. So we're just going to run this through a small strainer so the majority of what makes it through is all liquid, and we can load up our injector with that. Now don't throw this stuff away. This has got lots of flavor in it as well. You could use it to rub on the outside as a wet rub, or what we're going to do today is pour off about a quarter cup of the strained stuff, and we'll throw that into the wrap later during the cook. So set that aside. All right, so we're going to load up the injector now. We're working with that Butcher Barbecue pistol grip injector today, my personal favorite. I'm going to start on this side where we've carved away in the middle, and we're going to work this way. There's a small pocket of meat right here. I usually try to get just a little bit pumped into there, and you'll see that pump right up. We'll go just a little bit right in here, fill that up. And then we're going to come in on this thinner end of this flap, just create a little bit of a pocket when we get in there, and then add the liquid. And we're just working in a grid pattern. So we're hitting it here, 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 every inch or two, and we're going to work our way all the way down the butt. So trying to get right down there in the center of the muscle, keeping in mind that we're at the thickest part of the pork butt right now. Don't be worried about seeing a little bit come back out. All right, now we can flip this over and we'll work our way back to the other side. Now we've already gotten kind of down in the center of here, so I'm just gonna add a little bit to this top layer. Again, just kind of working in this grid pattern, back and forth. And you can see here we're down to about a quarter of a cup. So if we go through all 8 ounces of this, we started with 1 cup of injection, which is going to work out to about 1 ounce per pound on this 8-pound pork butt. Just a little bit extra left, so I'm going to pump that in here and there. This guy is now fully injected. And we've got a little bit of injection across the entire surface of the meat, which is going to be great for getting our rub to stick. Now for the seasonings today, I'm going to kind of layer it up, starting with a finer seasoning on the bottom. That would be the Yardbird rub from Plowboys Barbecue. This is just a fantastic all-around barbecue rub. Love it on pork, love it on chicken. As you can see, we're getting all surfaces of the meat covered. All right, so we got some salt, we've got some sugar, we've got a little bit of red, which is going to look really pretty, especially working with our cherry wood that we're going to be smoking with today. And then we're going to come in with a little bit more coarse rub that's going to add some extra complexity. And that would be the Cattleman's Grill Smoky Chipotle. So this is actually considered a steak rub, a coffee steak rub, but it's also got a good amount of sugar in it, which is going to be great for getting some caramelization on the outside of here. And then just the earthiness of the coffee, working with the chilies and the marinade and that injection, that's a fantastic combination. Also, a nice rustic, chunkier rub on the surface helps to develop a really beautiful bark. All right, we're going to give this a few minutes to set up. Kind of use up all the rub that's on the table here. And here pretty quickly we'll be ready to get this onto the smoker. Today we're cooking on the Yoder Smokers YS640 pellet grill, running right around 250 degrees with a combination of cherry and pecan pellets. All right, so we're gonna go right here on the top shelf, kind of in the center toward the stack. As you can see, I'm sort of spreading this out a little bit. That's going to help us to get some bark on the underneath side here. As much surface area as we can get exposed to the smoke, that's a good thing. At this point, we really don't even need to look at this thing for at least 3 hours. All we're looking to do at this point is get some really nice color on the outside. We want sort of a mahogany, red-brown color, develop the bark, and then when we get to that point, we can wrap it up in foil to finish. So we'll see you guys in a few hours. All right, I wanted to give you guys an update. We're about 3 hours in now. We're not ready to wrap, but I wanted to give you guys an update. So that red color is really starting to come through, which is great, but we need it to darken up a bit more, and we want to see more pockets like this where that fat is kind of starting to leak out of the muscles. So for now, we're gonna let it ride maybe another hour or so. All right, guys, I've been keeping an eye on this since about the 4-hour mark. We're now about 5 hours into this cook, and this pork butt looks beautiful. Come check it out. Just look at the color on there. That's exactly what we're looking for. Dark red mahogany. It looks moistened all the way across the surface. This is at a perfect point for wrapping. Now you're gonna need 2 pieces of heavy duty foil on your workspace. If you've got any juices from that pan, go ahead and add those back. And then like I said early on in the video, we saved some of that marinade to add to the wrap along with those solids that we strained off. So we're gonna pour those on now. And what's gonna happen here is we've created this beautiful bark that's now going to be braising in all of these extra liquids, including whatever comes out of the pork from here on out. So that kind of lets you know what wrapping does for you is it traps all those juices inside the foil packet, juices that otherwise are going to run out into your grill and evaporate. And when we capture those, it's going to allow us to have perfectly juicy pulled pork in the end. So you want to wrap this just as tight as you can and make sure you have a look around that you haven't punctured that foil anywhere, because that's going to cause you to lose your juices. Now we're going back up onto the second shelf of the cooker. And placing that right dead in the center, we're gonna go up to 325 degrees now, and that's simply to expedite the process. I wanna get there a little bit faster. You could ride this thing out at 250 the whole way. It's just gonna take a little longer. All right, we're right around in between 7 and 7.5 hours into this cook now. Got that beautiful bark on the outside. We're temping around 206 on the deepest part of the muscle here. And as you can see, this bone is just ready to slide out. All right, so this guy is ready to come off. All right, we got all the smells coming off this hot pork straight out of the smoker. Love that chili smell coming off of there. Now with a lot of our big meats, you're used to doing a long rest time after the cook. One of the great things about pulled pork is that I've found you don't really need that long rest time because you're gonna shred it all up and toss it in the juices that it's been sitting in anyway. So all of that meat's gonna be moistened by the juices that have come out of it and are held in that foil package. So now with some cottons on and some nitriles on top, because this is going to be real hot, you can just get in here and start to squeeze that by hand and just look at how easily that's falling apart. I mean, I'm just giving it a shoulder massage here and it's shredding apart that easy. Now you still might come across some sections of this chewy stuff that hasn't quite broken all the way down, and that's okay. We don't need to eat that, so we can set it aside, get rid of it. We've done a pretty good job of cleaning this shoulder though, so we're not gonna run into too much of that. And just look at those long, wonderful strands just pulling right apart and super juicy. And there we have those juices from the foil packet. And this is why we wrap, and this is why we save the juices, because all of that goes right back into the pork. And you see how that's running in the bottom of the pan? When we run all of this meat through those juices, you'll see in just a few seconds here, it soaks up all of that liquid until it's not standing anymore. There's no liquid down there. It's all been reabsorbed back into this pork. So now we've got all of this super juicy pulled pork just falling apart, but we've also got these chunks of that bark from the outside because of all that surface area that we created by getting into that crevice and spreading things apart and allowing the smoke to penetrate from all angles. Now we know the texture, we know the aroma, all of that is great, but we gotta check out the flavor. So juicy. It's salty, a little bit sweet, definitely smoky, and I love that chili flavor from that marinade. Fantastic. Let's build some sliders now. I mentioned before that this would be great on a lot of different applications, but the slider is always a great idea for a party. You get a ton of these out of one pork shoulder. You know, we're talking about like 40 of these little guys out of one shoulder. But also, don't forget about the taco. Don't forget about the pulled pork pizza. Always a good idea. These are good enough to eat without sauce, but if you're gonna go with sauce, the Tar Heel Tang from Plowboys is a great pork sauce. As the name implies, it's tangy. It's one of those red vinegar type sauces, but it's got a touch of sweetness to it as well that's really nice. Just a great compliment to the pork. And then I always love to have a little bit of pickle on my pulled pork sandwich. So we're going with Dad's spicy garlic dill today. Beautiful. If you've not tried dill pickles on your sliders before, one of the best compliments, I think. We know the pork's fantastic. Toasted bun, super easy. This is a go-to recipe. It doesn't even matter if you change up the flavor profile a bit. The technique remains the same. This is a great way to do pulled pork start to finish. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out atbbq.com for all the products featured in today's video. If you enjoyed the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comments section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to atbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.